Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video it will present what if Naruto was the second sage of 6 paths part 2. Enjoy. Naruto looked at the person who had gravity-defying hair standing in front of him. The great toad sage Jiraiya? He asked him incredulously. Jiraiya nodded. That is right, he said. I am the great sage of Konoha, one of the legendary 3, he said dramatically. The legendary 3 Jokers? Naruto asked him, at which Jiraiya face faulted. Damn it brat, you ruined my entrance, he said. There will be hell to pay for this, he said. Shut up you old geezer, Naruto shot back at him, not caring if this guy was a toad sage or a legend. He was irritating as all hell. Sarutobi watched the scene in front of him with amusement. It reminded him of when Jiraiya first met Kushina. She had treated him the same way Naruto was treating him now. He has come a long way already, Kushina, Sarutobi thought, smiling as Naruto and Jiraiya continue their back and forth. You would be proud of him. Pervy sage, Naruto said. I have seen you before. When I was 4, you were peeping in the women's section of the hot spring, and then somebody caught you and you had to run away, he said, laughing at Jiraiya who had a scowl on his face. Don't call me that brat, he said with a pout, but Naruto had no intention of stopping with the ribbing. He continued until Sarutobi had enough. Okay, Sarutobi said, interrupting their volley. I am tired of this now. Naruto, will you listen to this mission I have for you? He asked Naruto, who nodded. Sorry old man, it's just that this pervy sage is a real idiot, he said, sighing. And I thought you interrupted my training just so I could meet this man here, he said. Sarutobi smiled. Jiraiya can be like that, but I am getting to my point now, Sarutobi said. Now Naruto, Sarutobi continued when he realized that there wouldn't be any further interruptions. You hail from the Uzumaki clan, which is a clan well known for having been allies of Konoha in the Shinobi Wars. However, the whole clan was wiped out some years ago, he said. They lived in Uzashigakure, the village hidden in the whirlpools, the symbols most Konoha shinobi wear on their shoulders. The one of the spiral is actually the symbol of your clan. It was done to signify the alliances of the 2 villages, he said. The Uzumaki were infamous for their proficiency in Funjutsu. They were highly feared, and the Uzumaki ninja were also master swordsmen. They could turn any battle in the favor of the side they were participating in the battle for, and for that reason many villages wanted them taken down. They did it by allying against your village. Iwa, Kiri and Kumo were all involved in the taking down of your village. There was a fierce battle fought for 3 days with all the shinobi forces against the Uzumaki. However, after 3 days the battle turned in the favor of the alliance between the 3 villages, and yet the Uzumaki had managed wiping out all of their forces. That, combined with your own father taking out thousands of Iwa ninja, had turned the battle in Konoha's favor, and the battle had finally been won. Sarutobi finished. Naruto smiled. It was good to know where he got all his determination from. The Uzumaki clan, said Jiraiya, standing up and walking towards the window. They were known for their amazing lifespans. Uzumaki clansmen would live on for years and years. They were also known for their stamina, which was godlike in some respects, Jiraiya said. I can say that I myself learned some of the sealing from the Uzumaki. They trusted me enough, and the reason I am the seal master is because of that, Jiraiya said. Naruto's eyes widened. This guy was a seal master? Naruto, you can visit the village. You always needed to be with an Uzumaki to get in, or you needed to be allowed. I am sure you will be allowed to go in too. There are a lot of possessions there, including some tips on sealing. I want you to go there and recover it. Not only you, but also Konoha can use it to become stronger, and then in the future we can train our ninjas in Funjutsu. There is also a high probability that there might be some weapons there. You can pick one to train with, Sarutobi said, smiling. Naruto grinned. Maybe he could find a cool sword to fight with. He had always wanted one, and now he could have one. Really, old man? He asked Sarutobi, who nodded. Yes, finally I can have a sword for myself, Naruto said, pumping his fists in the air. Jiraiya smiled. Don't get too excited, brat. I am accompanying you, and I will train you, Jiraiya said in the same pompous tone that he had taken on when he had first met Naruto. Naruto scowled. Oh yes? You don't need to. I can train by myself, he said to Jiraiya, who sighed. Naruto, Sarutobi said. Are you sure that is a good idea? I mean, he did train your father, he told Naruto. Naruto looked at Jiraiya with a funny expression which made Jiraiya feel like a monkey in the zoo. What are you looking at? He asked Naruto. Are you telling the truth, old man? This pervert taught my father? He asked Sarutobi, who nodded. Jiraiya sighed. You know, you might think I am an incompetent loser, but I am actually pretty strong. Your father was one of my most promising students, he said, sighing. He had a future till the Kyuubi attacked, Jiraiya said sadly. Do you know? He continued. You were named by me? He asked Naruto, whose eyes widened again. Yes, Jiraiya said, smiling at Naruto's expression. You are the name of the lead character in my book, The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi, he said, taking out a green-colored book and tossing it to Naruto, who caught it. This book was horrible. It barely sold. No wonder I had to write Ichiricha, he said, sighing. Naruto stiffened. This guy wrote those books? I did not know you had such a tough life, kid. I mean, the one time I visited the village after you were born was to deliver a report, and I didn't even meet sensei, he said sadly. But now that I am here, he said, his tone doing a complete changeover, I will train you in your father's technique, the Rasengan, he said, flashing a smile. I learned that already, Naruto said, which caused Jiraiya to fall over. What the hell? Jiraiya asked Sarutobi. This kid learned the Rasengan at 7 years of age, now you will tell me he completed the technique too, Jiraiya said, at which Sarutobi nodded. As a matter of fact, he said, smiling, he did. Jiraiya was completely shocked at this. He could not believe it. This kid had completed the Rasengan, something he himself couldn't do. Naruto, Sarutobi said. Channel some chakra to your eyes, he said. Naruto nodded and did what was asked of him. No way that is, Jiraiya said, stammering. The Rinnegan, Sarutobi said simply. Yes, but it looks different. Is that because of the fox, he asked Sarutobi, who nodded. That is what Kurama says it is, Naruto said. Kurama? Jiraiya asked him. Oh yeah, Kyuubi's real name is Kurama. Cute, huh? He asked Jiraiya, who stared open-mouthed at Naruto like he was some kind of an alien. Listen, you two catch up at Ichiraku Ramen Bar. I have loads of work to do, he said, dismissing both of them. Leave for the village tomorrow. It's in the land of whirlpools, not too far away from the land of the waves, he said. Jiraiya has been there, so he knows where it is, he said. Naruto nodded. The two soon left the office, leaving Sarutobi with his paperwork. Does anybody have the cheat code to beat paperwork? He thought to himself, sighing as he went on with his routine. X. So you named me, eh? Naruto asked Jiraiya, who nodded. They had just left the village. Naruto had spent last night sealing his belongings in a seal. Jiraiya was impressed that Naruto could use seals with such effectiveness already. Yeah, I told your father that Naruto was a name I came up with while thinking of ramen, but he insisted on you being called Naruto, he said. What would have happened if I was a girl? He asked Jiraiya. I mean, Naruto is a guy's name, right? So he trailed off. Jiraiya laughed. I guess then we would call you Naruto, but how does it matter? He asked Naruto, who had a serious expression on his face. I just wished my parents were the one who told me all this, you know, he said with a hint of sadness in his voice. Jiraiya smiled. Oh, your parents are alive, he said, which made Naruto stop walking. What? He asked Jiraiya. I meant here, he said, rubbing his chest, indicating the heart, and up there, he said, pointing to the heavens. I'm sure they are watching, he said. What do you think they are saying right about now? He asked Jiraiya, who sighed. They are angry that I wasn't there for my godson, he said. Naruto nodded his head. Look, pervy sage, I can understand why you weren't here. You had things to do, he said. Jiraiya smiled. Yes, Naruto, I had a spy network to run, and I expected you to fend for yourself till I came along. You see, I would have trained you either way. After all, you are the son of my best student, and someone I hope to pass on my own teachings to, he said. I just hope that you would be ready to appreciate what was taught to you, he said. I however did not expect the villagers to be such idiots, Jiraiya said sadly, or else I would have done something, he said. Naruto smiled. Don't blame them, pervy sage. I mean come on, they are poisoned by those fools on the council, especially the civilian council, he said. Jiraiya nodded. Those fools are idiots, which is why I want you to hide the Rinnegan from them as long as possible, do you understand? He asked Naruto, who nodded. Kurama told me that already, that is not a problem, he said. Jiraiya nodded. What else did the fox teach you? He asked Naruto. Water manipulation. I learned earth and wind by myself. I perfected the Futon, Rasengan by myself too, he said. What about other things? He asked Naruto. Oh, that reminds me, he said, biting his thumb and making the hand seals for the Kachihao's no jutsu, he called out, hitting his hands on the ground. Jiraiya wasn't sure if Naruto had a contract, however a giant bird was summoned nonetheless. Jiraiya stared at the bird open-mouthed. Even while training Nagato he hadn't seen anything like this. The giant bird looked like one of those rocks from the old days, those giant birds which were known to have carried off innocent children to their deaths. My Rinnegan allows me to summon these, he said, pointing out the eyes of the rock, which also had a red-colored Rinnegan eyes. Actually any animal as long as I have chakra, he said as he got on the bird. Come on old man, are you gonna hop on or not? He asked Jiraiya, who nodded and rushed over to the bird. So you tell me the directions and this bird will fly us there. Keep in mind my limit with this bird is 5 hours, beyond that I get tired, he said. Jiraiya nodded. They were outside Konoha, 5 miles away from the main gates. Wave country is to the west, he said as he sat behind Naruto, who nodded. The bird took off immediately, and to Jiraiya's delight, they were going pretty fast. This is a useful skill, Jiraiya told him. Naruto nodded. I know, I actually practiced for something like this. I had to build up my chakra reserves for all that, he said. Lots of water walking and tree climbing, he said. Jiraiya smiled. Naruto was taking his training really seriously. Hiruzen Sarutobi was back in his office staring at the moon. The paperwork had kept him in the office for a long time, but it wasn't like he had anyone to go back to. Only Konohamaru was the relative he had in the village. His son was still working for the Fire Lord. Sarutobi sighed as someone knocked on the door. It was his old teammate, Danzao Shimura. The man had been his rival back in the day, and now he was a war veteran, with bandages covering his arm and one eye, leaving him with one good arm and one good eye. Hiruzen Danzao said to him, in what Sarutobi assumed was a greeting. Yes, Danzao, Sarutobi replied, indicating for him to take a seat. However, Danzao did not take a seat. Some people have seen Naruto leave the village with Jiraiya, he said. What is the meaning of this, Hiruzen? He asked. Sarutobi sighed. It's a training trip, Danzao, he said, in his own way to assuage Danzao, who had for long advocated that Naruto be kept safe and brought up as a weapon. I am happy that the boy is getting training, but I am not happy with who is giving it, he said. Sarutobi raised his eyebrow at this. Who would you have wanted to train Naruto? He asked Danzao, even though he pretty much knew the answer. Me, Danzao said simply. I would have raised him and trained him properly, he said. The way a shinobi should be raised, not like the way you trained them, he said. Sarutobi stood up, clearly angry. Danzao took a step back. Don't think that I don't know what you would have done to him. It would have been just like all the other ninjas in your route, he said, practically spitting out every word. Hiruzen Danzao said. Your method was Tobirama sensei's method, Sarutobi said. Don't tell me that you are that willing to disobey your own sensei, he said. Well, I want the good of the village, Hiruzen, just like you. But I think my way is better, he said, before turning around and walking away. Sarutobi sighed. This was a perfect way to end what was already a really bad day. The fates were against him today. Naruto and Jiraiya had already reached the wave country 4 hours by taking flight, much to Jiraiya's delight. However, much to Jiraiya's chagrin, there was also no bathhouse. Because of the poor economic conditions of the country, even the lord of wave country was practically a pauper. The problem was thanks to the precarious position of the country. The country used to be prosperous thanks to the number of ports they had. However, much recently, a shipping magnate called Gato had taken over the one remaining port of wave country and thus shut out the whole place. This led to all prices shooting up and poverty becoming commonplace. Also, all bathhouses were stopped as people did not have money to spend in them. Many women had been forced into prostitution thanks to the poor economic conditions. However, Jiraiya assured himself that he would not stay too long. He was leaving as soon as he got a ship that could take Naruto and him to the whirlpool. They were staying in a beaten up rest house that was far more expensive than Konoha would have, but it would have to suffice. Naruto had just returned from taking a walk around the village and he was not looking very happy. Man, I thought my life was hard. These orphans really have it bad here, Naruto said, wiping his forehead before taking a sip of what he thought was water before he spit it out. Ugh, what the hell is this? He asked, thrusting the bottle in Jiraiya's direction, causing the white-haired man to laugh. That is sake. You are too young to understand the good things in life, boy, Jiraiya said, smiling. Naruto scowled. Yeah, right. Well, these orphans don't understand the good things in life either, he said seriously. The economic situation in this country is not very good, Naruto, but there isn't much you can do about it. At least not now, he said. Naruto nodded. I wish I could do something, to ease the pain, Naruto said. Jiraiya nodded. I felt the same way too, Naruto, but there are some things that a person can never ever change. You have to give them time, they sort themselves out eventually, he said. I guess you are right, pervy sage, he said, causing Jiraiya to hang his head down. I told you to not call me that, he said, but Naruto shook his head. Never gonna stop calling you what you are, pervy sage, he said again, this time stressing on the words pervy and sage. Jiraiya decided he needed to drop this topic. Okay brat, we have to move now, let's get to the port, he said. Naruto nodded before beginning to seal everything they had unpacked. Soon they were on their way to the port. Naruto looked around the city. The poverty in this area was rampant, and there was almost nothing he could do about it. He still thought back to his own life, and he could sympathize with these people. They had gone through what he had gone through, except there wasn't an entire village that was after the lives of any of these orphans. While Naruto was ostracized because he contained something that reminded the village of all the destruction and death that had been caused due to it. At least no one here has to be accused of being a demon, he thought as he saw a boy and a girl fighting over a rice cake. Naruto's heart sunk as the boy decided to break the ball in half and give it to the girl. At least they knew the importance of sharing something. He wished someone had done that for him when he was struggling. Maybe someone could have helped him out whenever he was troubled by anything. But he wasn't that lucky. Soon they reached one of the small docks. There they saw a tall man and another old man who was bespectacled and looked and smelt drunk. I am looking for a boat that can take us to the whirlpool that is not too far away from here, Jiraiya said, looking at the two men. The taller man stepped forward and spoke up. I am sorry, but I do not row. I am a farmer and my father is a bridge builder. However, I have a friend who can take you there, he said in an apologetic tone. That's alright, I don't mind at all, Jiraiya said. The taller man began walking towards one of the other boats on the dock when the drunk and spectacled man stopped him. Kaiser, for all we know these could be Gato's men, he said. Why should we help them? The man named Kaiser shook his head. Father, looks like you have had too much to drink. Tsunami will be unhappy again, he said. The old man shook his head and moved away, grumbling as he did so. Kaiser came back 5 minutes later with a man in a hat. This man here is good. He will take you to your destination, but be careful. Do not venture in the whirlpool. Many people have died trying to go there. There is an island near the whirlpool which is the only safe place, he said. The rower stepped forward and shook Jiraiya's hand. It will be a pleasure to take you there, he said. Jiraiya nodded. If you don't mind me asking, why do you wanna go there anyway? Kaiser asked Jiraiya. I am sorry, but that is confidential, he said. Kaiser nodded. Very well, I wish you a happy journey, he said. Jiraiya nodded, and bowed, so did Naruto. Soon they were on the way there. Pervy Sage, maybe we could have flown there. This boat thing wouldn't have been necessary, Naruto said. Naruto, it would be impossible flying there, because of the mist that surrounds the place, Jiraiya said. Mist, was that done for some additional protection, he asked Jiraiya, who merely nodded. Yes, your clansmen were very clever, he said. Of course they were, Naruto said, smiling. 3 hours later they found themselves close to a giant whirlpool. There was an island that was just on the edge of the vortex and the rower had to make a complex turn to land them there. He then left after Jiraiya paid him more than what was necessary. Now Naruto and Jiraiya found themselves on the island that was not too wide. "Naruto, use your blood, will you?" he said. Naruto nodded before biting his thumb and spilling some of his blood on the ground. The effect was immediate. The whirlpool stopped and was replaced with a bright light. Space-time barrier ninjutsu. Uzumaki clan accomplished stuff like this thanks to a seal. Only the members of the village could access it. And since you are a blood relative, you can too, Jiraiya said. They stepped through the white bright light and found themselves in another place altogether. The village of Uzushi. "Welcome to your home village, kid," Jiraiya said, smiling at the look on Naruto's face. The place was beautiful. It was built on a water body and houses and buildings were on small islands, much like the one that Naruto and Jiraiya had stood on. However, the islands were connected by planks of wood that were tied together to make a bridge of sorts. Crude but effective. There were fortification seals on the planks, thus maintaining the sturdiness of the whole bridge. "This is amazing," Naruto said in an awestruck tone, causing Jiraiya to laugh at him. "It is, isn't it? Now let us go to the place where the leader of the clan lived," Jiraiya said as they began walking towards a huge house that could be spotted even amongst all the buildings. The buildings themselves were largely not damaged, however they had the feel of a place that had been abandoned for a long time. That was obvious, no one had lived there for a long time. As they came in front of the large house, they noticed that there was another requirement of blood. Naruto obliged again and the gates opened, revealing a huge house. "Naruto, I have to stop now," Jiraiya said. Naruto looked at him with a puzzled expression on his face. "This place might be booby-trapped and only Uzumaki can be safe navigating this place. I think you should go on your own," he said. Naruto nodded before leaving. Naruto explored the whole place and there was not much of note, except that he really liked the way the place was designed. However, he found a diary in one of the rooms and flipped open a page. "I just got news that my daughter has found herself a lover, and I am extremely happy today. It is a person who is worthy of being an Uzumaki. After all, he is known as the Yellow Flash for a reason. The war has taken a toll on us and we have lost so much that I don't think we will make it through this. I hope she can forgive me. I don't even have the time to write these days and she seems really worried about me too. I hope they have a kid. I will leave all I have to him/her." Naruto looked at the cover of the diary. Many pages were missing. The cover read "Diary of Clan Leader." He turned more pages and looked back at another entry. "Today I had to send Kushina away, the saddest day of my life. I wonder if I will see her face to face again. I promised that I would send some letters but I can never ever see my daughter again. I hope Mito-sama takes care of her." Naruto smiled. So the clan leader was his grandfather, which made him the pseudo-leader of the clan that had one person in it. He flipped more pages till he found a letter that fell to the ground. Along with it he also found a key. He opened and he read the letter. "Dear grandchild. This is for the future as I am not sure if I even get to have a grandchild. However, I know what the blood of your father and mother is like and I can predict what your blood will be like. I want to entrust to you my sword. I call it the butterfly. However, it doesn't really have a name. This sword, which you will find in the vault behind the room, which can be opened only with the key and a blood donation, is called so thanks to it being so light. It is strong but it feels like you are holding thin air. This is thanks to all the seals that have been used in the making of this blade. You can also channel elemental chakra through it. I don't know if you will ever locate this blade, but I want to make sure that if you don't, no one does. Love. Your grandfather." Naruto wiped a tear away from his eyes. The letter was short but it made sense and was all that was needed. He found a vault behind the room and opened the lock, then made a blood donation. The door opened and there it was, the sword in all its glory. It had a greenish hue and the hilt was golden while the blade was long. Naruto reached out and held the blade in his hand. However, he was surprised to see what happened next. Naruto found himself in a dark room. He stared as a giant dragon stared at him. "Uzumaki Naruto," the dragon said to him. You seem to be of a pure heart, let us see if you can prove it to me. Naruto nodded. His grandfather hadn't said anything about a test, this was news to him. However, he expected there to be one. I don't understand you, Uzumaki Naruto. Why would you stay in the village that shunned you for what you hold inside you? Why would you do that? The dragon asked him. Because it's my job, Naruto said, making it sound really simple. Job? What job? My father sealed the fox in me because he trusted me to wield his power. Once the villagers realize that I can safely control the power that I have been blessed with, they will come around. Till then I will strive to prove myself to the world, Naruto said with a determined look on his face. Nice answer, nothing less from the great Uzumaki. Fine, I shall entrust myself to you. I know you know what I can do. I sense that you read a letter, the dragon said. Who are you? Naruto asked the dragon, who smiled. The personification of the sword in your hand. As you can see, I take the appearance of a dragon, Naruto-sama. Now it's time to return to the ordinary plane, it said. Naruto found himself back in familiar surroundings. However, he realized that he could hold the sword and he waved it around. It felt really light. It was like he was moving air with his hands. He decided to channel some chakra through it. He tried wind first and realized that the sword was elongated. He yelped in delight. He had a really useful weapon. And also a very cool one. The sword of the butterfly, huh? He wondered out loud. Actually, I like being called something cooler. Like the dragon wrath came the sound from the sword. What the hell? Even the sword can talk? Naruto asked, looking at the sword. It's called sentience. Look it up in the dictionary, brat. I know what sentience is, Naruto scoffed, to which the sword let out a small shocking which pissed off Naruto. I had to pick up a sentient sword, didn't I, he said, furious with himself. Actually, it's good to have a sword to talk to. It can teach you kinjutsu and other techniques, and also, no one can ever take the sword away from you till you are alive. I see to people like that, only you may carry it, and if you have given permission to someone else, that person may also carry it. However, only you may use me in battle, the sword said. Only I can hear you, right? Naruto asked it. The sword would have face-palmed if it was possible. So, sword, tell me about my grandpa, Naruto said. Are you going to call me sword? The sword asked Naruto, who nodded. That name is cooler than butterfly, although I have to question the sanity of a person who decides to name a sword that personifies dragon's sword. But anyway, I am going off topic. Your grandfather was Takeshi Uzumaki, who was also nicknamed the Timekeeper, as he was one of the few people to have designed a seal that could alter space-time, although he had pathetic control over it. He gave birth to Kushina Uzumaki, who was chosen to be the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, just like you, the sword said. Naruto nodded. I wasn't chosen to be Jinchuriki though, my dad had to seal it in me, he said. Why? No idea, he was forced to do it, that is for sure. Someone had wrenched the control of Kyuubi and no one knows who. Apparently that secret died with my mum, and my mum, as you can tell, is dead, he said. So I will never ever know who did it, he said. Well, that is too bad. I presume that you will try finding out, the dragon said, which made Naruto laugh. What would my grandpa have done? He asked the sword. Uzumaki are brave and noble-hearted people. I think any Uzumaki would have wanted to find out who it was. However, before we do that, there are some things your grandfather had told me to do, the sword said. What? Your inheritance, Naruto-sama. You have a lot of it. I think you deserve it. Plus there are some books on sealing. Your grandfather knew that you would have a natural affinity to sealing. And there are some really complex ones in the vault, all of which belong to you, sword said. Led the way, sword, Naruto said. Okay, although Naruto-sama, maybe you shouldn't talk out loud. You have to think of me to communicate with me, otherwise people will think you have gone cuckoo, the sword said. Alright, I guess, but stop calling me Naruto-sama, it's weird. Just call me what I am, Naruto. Very well, the sword said. X. Naruto opened his mouth. So did Jiraiya, except Jiraiya's mouth was much wider than Naruto's. What the hell? Jiraiya shouted. Naruto was stunned, speechless. It was an hour after Naruto had taken over his sword, and it had led him to the vault with all the seals. He also found a way to deactivate all the booby traps in the house, which he did, and promptly called his godfather to check up on him too. They had followed the sword to a vault, behind which was heaps and heaps of money, gold coins and expensive looking gems. It was also the reason for Jiraiya's open mouth. "The hell, man, how can you be so lucky?" Jiraiya asked Naruto, who was puzzled himself. "Man, I will have to write a new ichu every month to make that kind of money in a lifetime. This is too much," he continued. Naruto sighed. His godfather's comical reaction wasn't enough to amuse him. "Grandpa had this place connected with a seal," he said, looking at one of the scrolls. "He used that seal to withdraw money from this place for the welfare of the village. He says it is a form of space-time ninjutsu and it can be used only by me from anywhere, so we don't need to transport us money," Naruto finished. Jiraiya still had an open mouth. "I think you have everything we need, brat. We should get going," he said. Naruto nodded. This had been really eventful. Hopefully he wouldn't go insane with all the changes that had been taking place in his life. He had lived like a pauper till now, and all of a sudden he is richer than the fire daimyo himself. Naruto sighed. For now it was back to training. If you guys have reached this far, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe and leave a comment of blue heart, red heart, blue heart.